All right, the best knife of 2020. Before we jump into that, I just want to say a few words about the year 2020. Not the whole thing that was going on, but in terms of the knife world, we have a lot of Chinese D2 budget knives. Like they literally flooded the market. They were like, I think we need one more Chinese D2 budget knife. And I get it. It's great for the people that are getting into knives right now. It's probably the best time ever to get into knives. So we had a lot of those things going on. Although, some of the makers already start to experiment with newer steels as well. But D2 is out there a lot. S35VN, 20CV. Those three steels seem to be the new meta steels, I guess. We saw a lot of cleavers in 2020. SOG had its comeback, sort of at the end of 2019, early 2020. I do not like their new designing as much as their old designing, but the quality is way better. So, I guess it's a win and lose situation, but it's good. It's better than nothing. We also saw more cleavers, and this was also kind of funny. SE also figured out at the start of the year that they can produce 3D contour scales for their knives, which is, it's awesome. I mean, humankind has used 3D contouring basically since the beginning, and in 2020 we figured out that flat scales are maybe not that great, but that's awesome. I mean, what can you say? It was also kind of funny that they introduced S35VN to their lineup, and they were like, S35VN sucks, let's break it and show you that 1095 is better. It's interesting, when companies disagree with what people say. Fair enough. That was really funny. Yeah, also did I mention that we saw more cleavers coming out, and also Chris Reeve upped their prices again. Chris Reeve knives in Europe pushing the €600 mark right now. It's a little bit crazy because at that price point you have to think twice if you do not buy a custom for that money. So I don't know where this is going. I mean, the knife market has become very competitive, I guess. There are so many new models and knife brands coming out. It's hard to compete for the old manufacturers that have been in the business for longer, and they just up their prices. And also these are difficult times, I get it, but at a certain amount of price they ask, it's a little bit difficult in my opinion. Did I mention that we saw more cleavers coming out? But it was good to see that Benchmade, still stayed Benchmade, and they discontinued the 810 Contigo. Can we just take a moment of silence and salute to the Benchmade Contigo? Because I think it was a great design. Let's just have a moment of silence here. Alright, and off we go. Also, we saw more cleavers this year, if I have not mentioned that already. A lot of custom makers had to close their doors. That was sad to see for me personally, because here in Europe we lost some very good people in the knife community that could no longer afford it to make knives for a living. So that was sad, but that's the way it is, I guess, now. The Knife News Best of the Year vote was an absolute disaster in my opinion. People voted for a lot of knives that were not even coming out this year, but that were a couple of years old already. I think the whole purpose of a vote of the year is to vote for knives that came out in exactly that year and not like 10 years ago, like seriously. And I don't even understand what people were voting for. It was really, I think the knife vote of the year was an absolute disaster in my opinion. I know, I have no problem if someone disagrees with my opinion. That's fine, that's good. It's good that we all have different opinions, but You know, sometimes you really think, you know, are people doing math during these votes? Like, what are they doing? It's crazy. Yeah, and if the year was not shit enough, then we also saw Cold Steel sold the company. Initially, they wanted to sell it to the Backyard Samurai, but he said he didn't take it, so Lynn Thompson sold it to GSM Outdoors. I have a feeling that this is not going to be good for the Cold Steel brand, but that's how it is. Oh yeah, did I mention we saw more cleavers also? Yeah. So that's it. That's my 2020 summary. Took me 5 minutes to make. I'm sorry for that. Let's get into the knife. Why is this the absolute best knife of the year in my opinion? Well, a couple of things that make it to me. Let's talk about the obvious thing here. The pocket clip. No, I'm just kidding. Let's talk about the shock lock first. We get into the pocket clip. I know the pocket clip, some people have concerns. We talk about that later. The shock lock. The shock lock is really interesting. It's really, really strong and has a really solid lockup, but at the same time, it's super fidgety and it's super easy to disengage and use. And the way it works basically is that you have this lever and you have a spring inside, and you pull back on this lever, and you don't pull straight back like on an axis lock where you can, you know, pull straight back and disengage the knife. You pull back and slightly upwards. That means, you know, just in theory, and this is just, you know, how I think about this, if you would have the blade open and you were to hit it on something really, really hard with full power, for whatever reason, you know, this is just in theory. We're not talking if this makes sense in practical, you know, real life, but in theory, that locking system, because you have to pull it upwards, like slightly upwards and not directly back, is, you know, it's really hard to disengage this on accident, in my opinion. So also what is great about the shock lock is, as you can see, we cannot see the spring that this mechanism relies on. It's trapped in here between two very thick slabs of G10 and two steel liners, and then inside the spar. So the spring, the most fragile part of this locking system, is completely enclosed. And I show you why I think this is great. This, for example, is a Spyderco Manix, in this case an old Manix with 154 cm, but it doesn't matter. As you can see with the Manix, let me get my flashlight out real quick. With the Manix, the spring that this mechanism relies on is, you know, open. It's right in there, so that means if dirt and dust gets in there, it can gunk up that spring right away. You know, also I think the ball lock by Spyderco in general is a really great lock. It has super solid lockup up and down. I think this is a really tough lock. The only thing I usually don't like about it is this, the most important part of this locking system, which is this part here. This little bar where the ceramic ball is trapped in, is made out of plastic usually. And as you can see, mine is already changed to an aftermarket one because the original one broke. So that's the weak part about this locking system. And also that the spring is, you know, it's very easy to get to that spring for if you have some dirt and debris going on around you. So this is what makes, in my opinion, the shark lock really great, because it's enclosed. The most important part of the system is enclosed. You may argue that, you know, the ball bearings that this knife runs on, this doesn't run on washers, this runs on ball bearings, are still, you know, it's still able to, for dust and dirt to get in there. But my knife right here is pretty dusty inside, and I do not have the feeling that this is, you know, running, has a bad action. No, it's running completely smooth. Very nice action, and it's very addictive to play with. And like on the Manix with the ball lock, this shark lock locks up really solid. So there is absolutely zero up and down or side to side blade play. Let's say if I was blindfolded for whatever reason, you know, maybe I was captured by Somali pirates, and they would blindfold me and give me this knife and say, you know, is it a fixed blade or is it a folder? And I would be like, I don't know. And they say, is it a fixed blade or is it a folder? And I'm like, it's a fixed blade. And they would shoot me, you know. Well, that tells us two things basically. Is first, it's not a good thing to be blindfolded by Somali pirates. And the other thing is that the shock lock is so solid, you can't, if you wouldn't know, this is a really, really solid construction here. And I personally also did some very hard use with this knife. And, before we get into this and I show you the clips, I want to say I am totally aware that this is not how to use a knife. I did this because I am a fan of Andrew Demko's work and I like to see, what that shock lock can hold up to. So I was just interested because, how we could, how the locking system, really performs. So I did some prying, which is stupid, I know, but like I said, I did this, just for testing. I do not use my knives all the time like this, most of the time. And yeah, this prying basically puts a lot of pressure sideways on the pivot and also on the blade a little bit. And it held up really, really well. There is absolutely zero side to side or up and down play. There is nothing. This still feels as good as before. There are no issues with the action whatsoever. We don't even have scratches on the blade really, because that stone wash hides those scratches pretty well. So, and that nail was in there pretty hard. It was, I couldn't pull it out with my hand, and I had a lot of knives that couldn't pull out this nail. It was, and I'm talking fixed blades or, harder used tools. This knife is an absolutely beast. So I went ahead and checked the up and down strength, which what I did basically, also again, this is not how to use a knife and this is not how I recommend you using a knife, but I just want you to show how strong this locking system really is. So what I did is I went in the woods and did some batoning. And again, no up and down, no side to side blade play. This lock is 100% solid. Yeah, so the shark lock is definitely a winner. And I'm pretty sure Andrew Demko has already done those things before, because he, basically designed this locking system for a number of years. He has been working on this, so I'm pretty sure he has thought about those things as well. And yeah, some people have concerns that, why this bar that you pull back on doesn't lock up with the stop pin, because that eventually, would give it more contact and would be maybe even a more solid locking system. But, like I said, I did some crazy shit with this knife, and I don't think that, it needs that. I'm pretty sure Andrew Demko has his reasons to, not do that. It would be interesting to ask him, maybe one day why he didn't do that, but this is a solid locking system. So I guess a natural comparison would be the Triad lock that he designed for Cold Steel. And the Triad lock is a really solid locking system, as we know. It's not as easy, especially, it didn't used to be as easy to disengage. The newer Triad locks that they come out with are super smooth and super easy to disengage. So, but again, the spring that this locking system relies on, that is inside here, is open. So, just in theory, this locking system is a little bit more solid even, I think. And also, obviously we have to say that this is made at a much different price point. So the quality is just on the next level. And how good is the quality for the money? I think this competes right with all the high-end knives that are on the market. So Chris Reeve, Hinderer knives, maybe a Microtech SOCOM, even a notch better than that, I would say, than most of these these knives that I just mentioned. The quality, and this is the machine ground version, like I said, or did I mention that? I probably didn't. The machine ground version is meaning that this is basically their production knife. It's not the custom, but I would see it more as a mid-tech knife. It's the quality is just really high up there. So like I said, the locking system is solid, and even after very stupid things, it held up well. Let's talk about the blade a little bit. The blade is 9.3 centimeters long, which is 3.6 inches. I'll give you a size comparison. Because we had already the Recon one out there. And so it's not an overly large knife, but it's still big. And mainly because of the thickness also. Overall length is 22 centimeters or 8.6 inches. And you know, what else do we have to compare it here? Maybe a Cold Steel Code 4. I will compare it to a lot of Cold Steels because, you know, it's the same designer. And then we have, on the spine thickness, we have 4.5 millimeters thickness. That's, what's that? 0.17 inches? I don't fucking know. It's thick, okay? It's a thick blade. And, it's very comparable actually to a Microtech SOCOM in terms of blade thickness, and also in terms of behind the edge thickness. We have about 0.4 millimeters in the front section, which is 15 thousandths, and 0.38 millimeters in the back section here, which is, you know, pushing 14 thousandths, a little bit more than 14 thousandths behind the edge. So it's a little bit slicier here than here. The difference to the SOCOM is, let's get these guys out of the way here. The difference to a SOCOM, for example, is that the blade thickens up a little bit more quicker. So the blade is a little bit wedgy, I guess, and this is a flat ground blade, by the way. It's they either come in CPM 3B or 20CV. This happens to be 20CV. You can usually read that on the inside, I think, here. So I'm not sure if I can show you that. No, it doesn't matter. So to write down the blade steel on the tan here. And other than that, the blade is completely, you know, sterile. There is no markings whatsoever. The only thing that we have on the blade in general is the Demko Knives logo here, and then Wampum, Pennsylvania. I had to Google that. I didn't know that was a town. So this is where these are made. Mainly, I think John Demko runs the shop, which we have to give credit as well. He's the brother of Andrew Demko, and the blade is very thick, and like I said, 9.3 centimeters or 3.6. It's not as long as you might think it is. That's what she said. You know, the knife is not as big in terms of blade length as you might think it is. It has a large handle, you know, so you can, you know, carry it comfortably with, or use it comfortably with gloves. And I think that handle reminds me personally a little bit of the SR1. It's a little bit different in terms of the grooves and the end, but it's a similar profile. And we also have that choil up here that you can choke up to. So I find it very comfortable to hold it in a saber grip. You can also hold it in a hammer or like this, and get a lot of blade control because the blade is not so long. I mean, it is a bigger blade, but it's not, you know, if it would be 4 inches, I guess, this blade would be less controllable. So with the 9 centimeters or 3.6 inches, you still have a lot of control. And I have small hands, by the way, so if you have even medium or larger hands, you will have a ton of control over this blade, which is something I really like. Because to me, this is sort of a hard-used work knife. This is not an all-rounder. I did compare it, like I said, to the Microtech SOCOM. The Microtech SOCOM is more of an all-rounder because it is pretty hard used, but it's also, you know, it can do a lot of things. It's sort of a tactical blade. You could potentially use it for self-defense. You can do a decent amount of slicing with this knife. This one right here, it's really just a work knife, and I wouldn't see it as anything else. And you know, it's big, it's bulky, it's 174 grams, which is 6.1 ounces. You know, it's heavy, but considering the materials that we have going on here and the thick blade and everything, it's not too bad. We have a lot of straight edge in the blade, so you can transfer energy directly into your cut. And then we have a decent belly, and then we have still a very fine pointy point. Even though the blade is so thick, the point is not, you know, overly stubby. And also you can see that that angle that he, you know, made that from here to the point is a little bit more aggressive. So it's not like this, it's a little bit more, you know, at this angle. So that means the point is a little bit, it's still a very useful and aggressive point. Despite the whole thickness and the thickness in the grind, we still have a very precise piercing tip, and I do like that. Andrew Demko has designed some of the more wedgier blades. I'll show you one in a second, hold on. So this is the AR light that Cold Steel released earlier this year. I was super excited initially about this knife, but as you can see here, the blade thickness, which is not that thick in comparison to the AD20, the blade thickness runs up all the way to the tip. Hold on guys, I will get you in focus in just a second. Here we go. The blade thickness runs up all the way to the tip and leaves the tip at a very, very stout angle. And that means it's not really that useful, you know, for practical things. And so I was a little bit disappointed because the light is also really, really thick behind the edge and does not do a lot of good cutting. But in general, I think this is a really great design. I just wish they would have done this in a hollow grind and with a little pointier point. But because like I showed you, with this knife you could even pry if you want to, which like I said, I don't recommend that, but you can do it without breaking the tip if you do it, you know, a little bit further back. So you have your strength back here and your preciseness up here, and that is something that I feel is great. The chimping is done really useful. You have a little bit of chimping on the shark lock, which I do not recommend, you know, putting a thumb up here, because you could, in that sort of motion, you could actually accidentally disengage this a little bit. I mean, you have to want to disengage this knife to make it close on you, but you can draw this a little bit further back than you would like to. So I usually don't put my thumb up here. But like I said, even if you do accidentally hit on this, you will only pull it straight back, but you have to lift it up to make it disengage. So it's still really safe. And, you know, like Cold Steel fans will be very familiar with this. If you close this knife, you can drop it right on your finger. So as long as your finger is up in that area, you cannot have this blade close on you. You really have to do some stupid shit to make this close on you. And yeah, you can also disengage this like this, so it's a little bit like a compression or like an axis lock. You have to move your fingers out of the way in order to disengage it, or you automatically do, I should say, which makes this knife, in my opinion, a really safe knife to, you know, open and close. I have never cut myself with this, you know, on accident. Yeah, a really, really safe and secure locking system. The chimping up here on the blade is done super well. I like that they put the chimping all the way, you know, through here. Usually the chimping ends a little bit further in this section, which gives you not that much control over the blades in certain, you know, cutting tasks. So I like that chimping. It's well done. It's a little bit aggressive. I like that because I have very thick skin on my thumbs from, you know, just from working. So I do like myself a little bit more of an aggressive chimping. And yeah, especially if you work with gloves or something, you will also find that come in handy. Another thing that's great, you know, if you should have to, you know, have a job where you need to work with gloves, the great thing is that we have very large thumb studs and then this cutout right here, which I have seen versions that come only with the cutout and only with the thumb stud. But the great thing about this is that it's hard to fail opening this knife, because you can either grip it here in this section or on the thumb stud. You can press directly in the thumb stud. That thumb stud is not really sharp. It's just big, but at the same time, it's not really getting in the way of the cutting path here. That's also great. We have a nice sharpening choil here. Yeah, there are so many great things to talk about this in this knife, and then it would initially seem like if you just look at this blade, it may not seem as interesting as it really is, but you have to look a little bit more closer to see some of the things. We have a very grippy G10, but it's not a too aggressive. I wouldn't say it's pocket ready like on the Recon, for example, from Cold Steel, but that pocket clip is a little bit, it's not tight, but it's I show you the problem of the pocket clip that I have personally, is that the angle of that nose here out of box is really far down. So it's like this, and as you can see, I bent it up a little bit to go in and out of the pocket a little bit more easy and not be as hard on my pockets. I don't know why they always, Cold Steel does this also, they always put the pocket clips like angled down really far. I'm not sure why that is. I don't really like it. Yeah, some people have concerns because the pocket clip looks a little bit unusual. I personally have to say it works well, and I do like it since I bent up that nose a little bit. You know, how you do that, you just take off the clip, you wrap it in cardboard, and then you take it to a vise and bend it up a little bit. And that fixes the problem, you know, without scratching your clip. So it's pretty easy to fix that. But, you know, if you don't have that problem, then there is no need for you to fix that. Yeah, the pocket clip, like I said, it works well. Some people have concerns because it looks a little bit weird. It's not reversible, but you can buy left-handed pocket clips at, you know, they outfitted all the dealers with left-handed clips as well. Which, one thing I have to mention here, and really have to give credit to the Demko brothers, is they also outfitted dealers here in Europe with these knives, which was great to see because usually it's really hard for us to get such blades. And I just wanted to say thank you that you did that. I know it's really annoying to send knives overseas, but you know, for us this is just really great. Without the full backspacer, they have removed a little bit of weight also. So the blade is a little bit front heavy, but it's not in a way that it is really annoying. I have no concerns with this. Yeah, it's not the easiest carry with the, like I said, 6.1 ounces, 174 grams. It's definitely not a summer carry, you know, office knife, sort of knife. This is a hard use tool. It's an expensive hard use tool, but you know, it's probably the best and most well-made hard use knife at the moment. And I guess it's also the strongest with that locking system. I think this is just an amazing piece, and the quality of this is just out of this world. The steel, I didn't talk about this too much. The 20 CV, you know, it's hard to say after 2 months how that steel is gonna hold up in the future, but you know, after me doing some stupid shit and after me using it just as a normal knife as well, the blade held up really well. It was not hair shaving sharp anymore, and I was not able to strop that hair shaving sharpness back, which is not unusual for 20 CV. So that's something I'm used to see from that steel, and it's not that easy to strop back usually once it loses that hair shaving sharpness, and like most powdered steels, I guess. But I checked the sharpness and I did some fruit cutting, some fruit slicing, and as you can see, the blade is still quite sharp. So I have no problem. I mean, at this point, this still slices paper really well. So actually, let me get out some thinner paper as well, so you can see. So after 2 months of use, which is not daily use, I guess, but still, so you can see the blade is still holding up well. I think the CPM 3V is a better steel for a set knife because CPM 3V is just a good hard use steel and we don't really see it very often in folders. But you know, the 20 CV holds up fine. It's not my favorite steel because it's not usually that easy to resharpen, especially if you have a lot of material behind the edge. But I guess on the other hand, it holds its sharpness for a really long time and you don't have to resharpen it that often. So, you know, there's a win and lose situation, I guess, with that. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up. I think this knife is absolutely the best tool. If you look a little bit closer and, you know, see some of the details, this is a really great knife. And the only thing I wish myself for the future is that they not only do more of these, but also that they maybe make, you know, the next summer is gonna come for sure. So maybe it would be cool to see this locking system in a more thinner, a little bit more lightweight knife. You know, something along the light design. That was a great design. I just didn't like the execution at all that Cold Steel put out. But like I said, a very thick grind and everything, and the tip is not really usable anymore. But if they put the shark lock in something like this and make it, you know, with a thinner cutting geometry, then you know, what Andrew Demko has achieved over the last years is, a lot of people have maybe not recognized that, but he has definitely achieved to push the, you know, size to weight to performance and to strength ratio. Way a knife can be so strong with his designs, but at the same time still very carryable. So yeah, I think he should proceed that, you know, strength to weight ratio a little bit more. And I hope we see a lot more great things from the Demko brothers, because as Cold Steel, in my opinion, will not be able to produce that many great knives anymore. I think I really hope that their custom shop and their knife shop grows and they put out more knives. And I'm pretty sure there is a market for that, because I would definitely buy another one if I had the possibility to. Yeah, this is an absolutely great knife. I can only highly recommend it. Usually I'm a very strategic buyer, okay? I usually plan to buy knives for years, and then I finally, when I have the money, I finally pull the trigger on it. With this one, I saw it at the dealer, I bought it the same day, and I absolutely do not regret it. This is a great tool. It's not going to be for everybody. Like I said, this is more how to use knife. It's a little bit thicker in the grind. This is not your little slicey, you know, easy to carry summer knife. It's definitely not, but you know, it does so many great things that I can only highly recommend it. Yeah, absolutely the best knife of 2020. I just was editing this video and I forgot to mention to wish you all a very, very, very good next year, and I wish you good luck and with whatever you're doing, and you know, pursue your dreams and never stop, don't give up, whatever the fuck I'm talking about now. So just stay safe out there, have a good one, enjoy 2021. Let's hope it's not going to be the same shit show that 2020 was. And yeah, keep your knives sharp, people. Keep your knives sharp.